Good day everyone, my name is Raymar Canotan. But before that, let me introduce first my group mates. First, we have Crisanta de los Santos, Miss Magsalay Cristalin, and lastly, Miss Atilano Erica G. The objective of our video is, at the end of the video, viewers should be able to first define the LCP or the Learner-Centered Psychological Principles. B. Identify the 4 general factors and its principles. And lastly, relate Republic Act 1053-3 and the K-12 framework. The first factors, we have cognitive and metacognitive factors. Let me explain first what is cognitive and metacognitive. Cognitive refers to the process to think, while metacognitive refers to the process used to plan, monitor, and assess one's understanding and performance. First principle, we have nature of the learning process. Successful learners are active, goal-directed, self-regulating, and assume personal responsibility for contributing to their own learning. The learning of a complex subject matter is most effective when it is an intentional process of constructing meaning from information and experience. There are different types of learning process. For example, habit information and motor learning, and learning that involves the generation of knowledge or cognitive skills and learning strategies. Next is the goal of the learning process. Educator can assist learners in creating meaningful goals that are consistent with both personal and educational aspiration and interest. The successful learners over time, with the support and instruction guidance, can create meaningful, coherent representation of knowledge. The strategic nature of learning requires to be a goal-oriented. Next is construction of knowledge. The successful learners can think new information with existing knowledge. Educator can assist learners in acquiring and integrating knowledge by a number of strategies that have been shown to be effective with learners of varying abilities, such as concept mapping and thematic organization. Next is the strategic thinking. The successful learners can create and use a repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategies to achieve complex learning goals. Meaning, successful learners use strategic thinking, their approach to learning, reasoning, problem solving, and concept learning. Next is context of learning. Learning is influenced by environmental factors including culture, technology, and instructional practices. Set goals, reasoning of learning, or select potentially appropriate learning strategies or methods and monitoring their progress towards these goals. Higher order strategies for selecting and monitoring mental operations facilitate creative and critical thinking. Thank you so much for listening. Ms. Crisanta de los Santos will continue the discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Lanutan. Good day, everyone. I am Crisanta S. de los Santos, a first-year student taking up Bachelor in Technology Livelihood Education, major in Home Economics. I will going to discuss the second and third general factors of the learner-centered psychological principles. First, I will be discussing the second general factors, the motivational and affective factors. Under it, we have the 3 principles. First, we have the motivational and emotional influences on learning. Second, we have the intrinsic motivation to learn. Third, we have effects of motivation on effort. Motivational and emotional influences on learning. What and how much is learned is influenced by the learner's motivation. Motivation to learn, in turn, is influenced by the individual's emotional states, beliefs, interests, and goals, and habits of thinking. We will know first what is motivation. Motivation is derived from the word motive, which denotes a person's needs, desires, wants, or urges. It is the process of sustaining interest activity towards goals. In other words, it is the process of motivating individuals to take action in order to achieve a goal. The student beliefs about themselves as learners and the nature of learning have marked influence on motivation, motivational and information processing, as well as an individual motivation to learn. Furthermore, motivation is a pathway to change our way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. It also reflects something unique about each one of us and allows us to gain valued outcomes like improved performance, enhanced well-being, personal growth, or a sense of purpose. Positive emotions such as curiosity generally enhance motivation and facilitate learning and performance. Mild anxiety can also enhance learning and performance by focusing the learner's attention on a particular task. Now, let's talk about what is emotional. Emotional is relating to a person's emotions. Emotions are inherently linked to and influence cognitive skills such as attention, memory, executive function, decision making, critical thinking, problem solving, and regulation. In other words, emotions can be taught as a brain processes triggering physical and cognitive responses to prompt individuals to act. Now let's talk about the intrinsic motivation to learn. The learner's creativity, higher order thinking, and natural curiosity all contribute to motivation to learn. Intrinsic motivation is stimulated by tasks of optimal novelty and difficulty, relevant to personal interest, and providing for personal choice and control. Intrinsic motivation to learn drives when learners perceive something as interesting and personally relevant and meaningful. In other words, it involves doing something because it is both interesting and deeply satisfying. Intrinsic motivation is facilitated on tasks that learners perceive as interesting and personally relevant and meaningful, appropriate its complexity and difficulty to the learner's abilities, and on which they believe they can succeed. Meaning, intrinsic motivation refers to actions that are driven by internal rewards. Now let's continue discussing about the third principle under motivational and affective factors, the effects of motivation to effort. Acquisition of complex knowledge and skills requires extended learner effort and guided practice. Without learners' motivation to learn, the willingness to exert this effort is unlikely without coercion. Willingness can motivate the learner and efforts will be your confidence. It means if the learners had willingness to learn and they can exert more effort to acquire more learnings or knowledge. Now let's move on to the third general factors, the developmental and social factors. Under it, we have the two principles, the developmental influence on learning and the social influences on learning. Now let's discuss the developmental influences on learning. As individuals develop, there are different opportunities and constraints for learning. Learning is most effective when differential development within and across physical, intellectual, emotional, and social domains is taken into account. Individuals learn best when material is appropriate to their developmental level and is presented in an enjoyable and interesting way, because individual development varies across intellectual, social, emotional, and physical domains. Achievement in different instructional domains may also vary. The development of an individual influences how they learn. This could be the ways in which they raise the environment or genetics. So when the teacher teach, they have to consider a wide range of factors because learners will have different limitations of learnings. Awareness and understanding of developmental differences among children with and without emotional, physical, or intellectual disabilities can facilitate the creation of optimal learning contexts. Now let's discuss the second principle under developmental and social factors, the social influences on learning. Learning is influenced by social interactions, interpersonal relations, and communications with others. In other words, learning can be enhanced when the learner has an opportunity to interact and to collaborate with others on instructional tasks. Learning settings that allow for social interactions and that respect diversity encourage flexible thinking and social confidence. The social environment influences learning by creating a language environment which stimulates the mind to grow. For example of social influences to learning is social interactions. The more you interact with people, the more you learn. How? There are different opinions from which you learn. You can receive and give feedback which helps you develop and get to know yourself better. That's all for my topic. I hope you learned something. And now, I will call on Miss Crystalline Magsalay to continue the discussion.
Thank you for that, Ms. Crisanta de los Santos. By the way, good day everyone. I am Crystalline Imagsale, and for today I'm going to tackle my assigned topic, which is about individual differences factors. There are three individual differences factors. The first one is individual differences in learning. The second one is learning and diversity. The third one is standard and assessment. The first one is individual differences in learning. Learners have different strategies, approaches, and capabilities for learning that are a function of prior experience and heredity. In a classroom, we could see now students will use different strategies in making activities that the teacher did. So as a teacher, you have to accept and respect it because, as we said, it is based on their background or their performance. And hereditary, so it means that whatever they have learned at home or whatever strategies they learn from their parents, those strategies or approaches are basically what they use into the learning process in school. The second is learning and diversity. Learning is most effective when differences in learners' linguistic, cultural, and social background are taken into account. So since we are in a diverse world, we have to take into account, put into consideration the diverse that we have the language, the culture, the background of learners. So basically, language can be a barrier in learning. When learners cannot express themselves well, or if they cannot relate to what they have, or if it's not related to their social context. The third one is standard and assessment, setting appropriately high and challenging standards and assessing the learners as well as learning progress, including diagnostic process and outcome assessment, are integral parts of the learning process. So we are now in the third factors, which is standard and assessment. As a teacher, you're not just to teach, but also you need to evaluate and assess the learners because the results are used to identify the learners' strengths, weaknesses, limitations, and also the difficulties of the learners. Moreover, the teacher would also know kind of support that the learners needed based on the result of the assessment. In a classroom, basically a teacher will give the three kinds of assessment. The diagnostic or given before the lesson. The formative during is to assess the learner's improvement, and the summary given after discussion. And it is for the teacher also to know which part that the learner learned and which part they have struggled or the learner will not able to understand. That's all for my report, and the next reporter is Erica Jane Natilano will discuss the legal and policy framework, learner-centered teaching. Thank you and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Magsalay. Good day, everyone. I'm Erica Jane E. Atilano, and I'm going to discuss all about the legal and policy frameworks and learner-centered teaching. It is all about the Republic Act number 10533. Republic Act number 10533, an act enhancing the Philippine basic education system by strengthening its curriculum and increasing the number of years for basic education, appropriating funds, therefore, and for other purposes. Otherwise known as the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, approved on May 15, 2013, and which took effect on July 8, 2013. The Department of Education, DepEd, the Commission on Higher Skills Development Authority, TESDA, hereby issue the following rules and regulations to implement the provisions of the Act. Section 1, Enhanced Basic Education. Republic Act number 10533, the Enhanced Education Act of 2013, seeks to improve the basic education system of the Philippines by strengthening its curriculum and lengthening the number of years of basic education from 10 to 12 years. The law was approved on May 15, 2013 by former President Benigno Simon Aquino III. Section 2, Declaration of Policy. The state shall establish, maintain, and support a complete, adequate, and integrated system of education relevant to the needs of the people, the country, and the society at large. A. Give every student an opportunity to receive quality education that is globally competitive based on a pedagogically sound curriculum that is at par with international standard. B. Broaden the goals of high school education for college preparation, vocational and technical career opportunities, as well as creative arts, sports, and entrepreneurial employment in rapidly changing and increasing globally environment, and make education learner-oriented and responsive the needs, cognitive and cultural capacity, the circumstances and diversity of learners, schools, and communities through the appropriate languages of teaching and learning, including the mother tongue as a learning resources. Section 3, Basic Education. Basic education is intended to meet basic learning needs, which provides the foundation on which subsequent learning can be based. It compasses kindergarten, elementary, and secondary education, as well as alternative learning system for out-of-school learners and those with special needs. Section 4, Enhanced Basic Education Program. The Enhanced Basic Education Program encompasses at least 1 year of kindergarten education, 6 years of elementary education, and 6 years of secondary education in the sequence. In order to meet these learning needs, the education system encompasses the 1 year kindergarten and 6 years elementary education and 6 years secondary education. K-12 framework. So the kindergarten is a 1 year and the primary education 6 years. Junior high school is 4 years. And the senior high school is 2 years. These are the basic education. The K-12 program covers kindergarten and 12 years of basic education, 6 years of primary education, 4 years of junior high school, and 2 years of senior high school, or SHS, to provide sufficient time for mastery of concept and skills, develop lifelong learners, and prepare graduates for tertiary education, middle-level skills development, employment, and entrepreneurship. K-12 system aimed to improve Filipino students' mathematical, scientific, and linguistic competence. With the new curriculum, DepEd promised to offer high-quality education through track, and each track will give students enough time to master a field and enhance their skill. The academic strand are business accountancy, management or BAM, humanities education, social science, HES, and science, technology, engineering, mathematics, STEM. Thank you for watching. Have a good day, everyone. God bless you all.
There are four general factors in learner-centered psychological principles, or LCP, and these are the cognitive and metacognitive, motivational, affective, developmental, and social, and lastly, the individual differences factors. And cognitive and metacognitive factors has 6 principles. First, the nature of the learning process means that subject matter is most effective when it is intentional process. Second, the goal of the learning process means that the learning occurs when the support of instructional guidance. Third, constructive of knowledge, that learners can create new information or idea with their existing learnings. Fourth, strategic thinking, that learner can create or use repertoire of thinking. Fifth, thinking about thinking, that strategies for selecting and monitoring mental operations of higher critical thinking. Lastly, the context of learning, that learners influenced by environmental including culture, technology, and practices. Next factor is motivational and affective factors that has 3 principles. First is motivational and emotional influences on learning, that the learner gained a lot by individual emotional states, belief, interests, and habits of thinking. Second, intrinsic motivation to learn, that learners creatively higher order of thinking, natural curiosity, or contribute to motivation to learn. Third is the effect of motivation on learning. Once the learner gets motivated, they will eventually exert effort to achieve the task. Next factor is developmental and social factors that has 2 principles. First is developmental influence on learning, that is most effective when differential development with across physical, emotional, intellectual, and social domains. Second is social influences on learning, that learners gained knowledge by social interaction, interpersonal relation, and communication with others. Last general factor of learner-centered psychological principles is individual differences that has 3 principles. First, individual differences on learning, that learners have different strategies and capabilities for learning. Second, learning and diversity, that learner is most effective when its differences are taken into account. And lastly, standard assessment with high setting of standard and assessing the learners as well as the learning progress. Republic Act Number 1053-3, an act enhancing the Philippine Basic Education System, or also known as Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, that was approved on May 15, 2013 during former President Benigno Aquino III and took effect immediately on July 8, 2013, that aimed to add another 2 years in high school for preparation for their college by taking the strand or track that they want to pursue in college. The academic strand are divided into 4: STEM, UMS, ABM, and GAS. Next track is TVL, has 4 specialized program: home economics, agri-fishery, information communication technology, and industrial arts, sports track, and arts and design. Senior high school core curriculum has 8 learning areas: language, humanities, communication, mathematics, science, philosophy, social science, and PE and health.